Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, candidate Hugh inside the Beltway on the 16th day of June in the year of our Lord 2022. I am inside the Beltway for a couple more days, and then I am removing to the northern border studio. I'll be coming to you from the Canadian border next week as I head north. It's already the swamp here. I was talking last night over at Fox. I was there for special report. Shannon Bream sitting in for Brett Baer. And my friend Amy Walter was in. We were just talking about the fact it's miserable already. And that's why people get grumpy in D.C., is it's just miserable. And Thomas Jefferson, you did this to us. I'm never going to take down a Jefferson statue. The man wrote the Declaration of Independence. But moving the capital to Washington, D.C., that was a bad choice. That's why people get grumpy around here. Democrats are really grumpy as they absorb the lesson of Tuesday night's election in the special election in Texas to fill a vacancy. There are 6 vacancies in Congress, and a Democratic seat went to a Hispanic Republican. And Mayra Flores crushed it in a district that many people say is 84% Hispanic. It's only been held for 2 years in the last 80 years by a Republican. And it was right after redistricting made it a marginal district in 2010. Blake, whatever his name was, won. And then he got tossed out because he's a weird dude. And Steve Kornacki was on MSNBC with Jose Diaz-Balart yesterday talking about this. And I'm leading off with this and not the Fed hike because everybody knows about the Fed hike already. But I want you to understand the amazing shift that's going on in American politics as the Democratic Party is crumbling before our eyes. Cut number 14.
This speaks to a story we've been talking about since the 2020 election, specifically along the border, the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas. We have seen county after county, whether it's in this district or some of the districts to the west of it, where voters have moved 10, 20, 30, 40 points away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. This district that Mayra Flores won last night, Barack Obama got more than 60% of the vote here when he last ran in 2012. Hillary Clinton won this district by 22 points. It's shifted that dramatically. Joe Biden carried it by 4 in 2020, and now in a special election, a Republican candidate has won it outright. We've seen shifts like this throughout South Texas. This, by the way, is the second most heavily Hispanic congressional district in the United States. We've talked about the potential shift among Hispanic voters. We certainly saw it in 2020. The question has been, would we see it in 2022? I think this result we got from Texas 34 last night definitely underscores the Hispanic vote could be up for grabs this fall in ways we haven't seen in a long time.
It's like an 85+% Latino district, right, Steve?
Yeah, I think that's the second highest in the country.
Yeah.
Just absorb that. The second most Latino district in the country voted in a Republican in a district that Barack Obama carried. But now the district lines change. So Mayra Flores is going to have a tougher race because they made it even more Democratic. They think they did, but not when you've lost. Marco Rubio summed it up. He said, Latinos don't want to vote for getting killed at the gas pump. They don't want to vote for education systems in public schools that tell boys they're girls and girls that they're boys. They don't want to vote for the inability to raise a family. And that's what's happening under Democratic rule. By the time the vacancies are filled, we have a bunch of special elections. There are 6 vacancies. 1 has been filled. Congresswoman Flores will be sworn in, and then it will be 5 vacancies. All those special elections will be done, and at the end of that, the House will be 221 Democrats to 214 Republicans. All right, so a 7-vote difference. That's before redistricting kicks in. Amy Walter, Cook Political Report, has it as at least, a line drawn 3 Republican point gain if you leave the numbers the same. But there's this enormous shift away from Democrats, like they're fleeing Democrats. And it's very easy to understand why House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy was on with Jesse Waters last night on Fox, cut number 20.
Going to deliver that message in 147 days. As I listened throughout your dialogue, it's very good. I mean, Joe Biden has not cut the deficit. The only thing he cut was my 401k to a 201k. Yeah. I mean, and when you look at it, the only thing he's given to the American public is a car payment without the car. We now spend $450 more a month. Everything costs us more because of inflation, because of the gas price, because of what we find with our own housing costing more, and our food. And think about this. He's now brought every single city to the border. Every city is a border city now. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45 because what he did to the border. And it's just issue after issue after issue. The only thing he succeeded in is making Jimmy Carter no longer look like the worst president we've ever had.
Kevin McCarthy is exactly right. Now, the headlines this morning are all about the Fed is raising interest rates again. What's next? Well, more raises. Washington Post. Fed raises interest rates by largest amount since 1994 to fight inflation. New York Times. Federal Reserve takes swing in inflation with largest rate increase since 1994. The Bank of England, according to the Telegraph in Great Britain, is under pressure to follow the Federal Reserve. Bitcoin is just crushed because look, I hate to say I told you so, but this is a real recession coming, and it's real inflation, and not real currencies don't do well. U.S. retail sales declined in May as inflation stings consumers. Caterpillar has said it's going to Texas as many American manufacturers flee the taxes as a way to save money. Got to get out of Illinois and California just to save money. Because I got asked by a Steelers fan yesterday, what is the connection between what the Federal Reserve does and inflation? Every time the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, it makes everything more expensive. But from your credit card to your car payment to your house payment to your new house. Now, some people buy houses with cash. House prices don't decline in response to that, but everything else does. People buy fewer cars. People buy fewer televisions. People go without vacations. They don't drive as much. So as interest rates go up, prices go up, and inflation gets broken because it breaks demand. All right, it's just supply and demand. Now most Democrats have no idea about basic economics. I got asked last night by Shannon Bream about this. I was on the panel with Jason Riley of the Wall Street Journal and my friend Amy Walter, and I got asked first about the interest rate hike, cut number 25.
Hugh, this has been a frequent target for blame from the president and from this administration. Can they be doing more?
No, they could be doing a lot more. They could invoke the Defense Production Act and increase capacity at refineries. They could have approved the Keystone Pipeline. They could reverse the president's first day in office decision to cancel that. They could expedite the leases that Admiral Kirby at the White House press podium today said there are 8,000 leases. That doesn't get them past various regulatory hurdles like the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Water Act. They could do a lot to increase production in the United States. They're not doing it. Instead, the president is sending absurd letters. What he should not have done was the reckless spending last year. He got mad at the AFL-CIO yesterday, yelled at voters, told them he didn't want to hear any more lies about his reckless spending, that they were changing lies. It's simply, last night was a warning shot, another one, a third, a fourth one, that Democrats are sailing into heavy weather because people stop at the gas pump every week and they blame Joe Biden, and they are right to do so.
That's just simply put. Now, I did get asked about the election last night, and I replied. I got asked about President Trump. Nancy Mace won in South Carolina, and President Trump didn't want her to win. And in fact, in the closely contested races, well, here's what I said to Shannon Bream, cut 26.
Hugh, did she find the right formula for keeping together the various coalitions within the Republican Party?
I think she did, and people are reading too much into what President Trump can and cannot do. He very much got J.D. Vance nominated in Ohio. He very much got Dr. Oz nominated for the Senate. If he endorses Joe O'Dea in Colorado, he'll get over the Democratic spending on behalf of the far-right candidate who's running against Joe O'Dea. He could get Eric Schmidt into the primary in Missouri. He could get Billy Long into the primary in Missouri. But if he gets behind Eric Greitens, it won't matter. We'll lose that seat. He's being strategic. He's batting 500. That's pretty good. If we get rid of the ones that are just a lock solid. And he weighed in Alabama, and he basically exiled Mo Brooks to the sideline. So he matters a lot. He just doesn't matter when races are not all about Donald Trump.
That I'm going to come back and unpack that for you, because some people said, no, he's 127 out of 139. Look, he does endorse a lot of people who are going to win anyway. I don't count that. I'm talking about in contested races, he bats about 500, which is better than Babe Ruth. All right, it's better, certainly better than Yastrzemski, who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. That's for you people up on MUR listening to me in Portland. I know you're all Red Sox fans. I know you are. Consolidated Communications, I love you. Please get the studio connected up on the northern border. I'll be right back, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Not often that you get a Dallas Theological Seminary grad who goes to the House of Representatives for 6 years and then wins the Republican nomination to be the next senator from North Carolina. I think Congressman Ted Budd is going to be Senator Ted Budd this time next year. He joins me now from North Carolina. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Hugh, I'm doing great. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You know, you're on financial services, so I don't know. You're running for Senate. I don't know how much time you have to do oversight of the Fed, but what do you make of what they're up to?
What we're seeing is a overreaction. This is too much, too late. This should have happened all along. They had a poor worldview that said this is transitory, and it's not. I mean, this is with us. It's hard to overcome. I mean, we're looking at, everybody's going to the grocery store and seeing 40-year inflation. They're going to the gas pumps. They're seeing things like we haven't seen in 40 years, and yet we're seeing major, major challenges to the economy. So the Fed should have had a hold of this. They pumped so much money. And let's go back to Milton Friedman. What would he say, Hugh? Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods.
You betcha.
And so all this money pumped into the economy, and yet you've told people to stay at home. You've disrupted supply chains from the shutdown, and perpetuated the shutdown. And so the people aren't there to produce. And so you've got this double whammy effect, if you will, that is hitting people at the kitchen table and their pocketbooks.
Congressman Budd, I want to play for you what we call famous cut four. Joe Biden on Tuesday at the AFL-CIO yelling at voters. Please play it for the congressman.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
I think you ought to put that in your ad, Congressman, because I've never heard a president yell at voters before.
The unions were those that actually realized these are hardworking people. I'm not talking about union leadership. I'm talking about actual men and women going up, working hard, oftentimes in factories. So, and they realized in 2016 that Trump was for the working men and women of America. I am for the working men and women of America, and they're telling me they can't afford groceries. These are people, these union folks that I don't know who he was screaming at right there, and maybe it was a teleprompter or an empty room.
It was AFL-CIO. He thought he had a friendly crowd, but he got carried away.
Yeah, maybe so. But these are folks that they're trying to fill up their pickup truck and go to work, and it's over $100 now. That's money that's not going to groceries. It's money that's not going to their kids' tuition. It's money that they're not going to be able to go on vacation. This is changing people's lives, and that's very scary.
Congressman, because you come to D.C. for 6 years now, that inside the blue bubble of the Beltway, people are disconnected from reality because this is an insulated world. There are people, I live inside the Beltway, and people are insulated from the real cost of living because they all have comfortable government jobs with built-in step increases in their GS pay grade, and contractors make it. They don't know what's going on. When you're on the campaign trail in North Carolina, what are people telling you?
But people are worried about three things. They're worried about inflation and economics, their jobs, and their financial security for themselves and their family. They haven't seen anything like this, like I said, in 40 years. They're worried about the border and crime. Sheriffs in counties across North Carolina are telling me that all 100 counties are now border counties because of Joe Biden's policies at the border. And they're not opposed to immigration that's legal with an L, but they are worried to death and worried sick about what's coming across here that's led to the highest death rate among those 18 to 45 years old, and that's fentanyl. So they're very scared about the crime wave that's happening. And they're worried about America being weak on the international stage rather than being strong. And this really, we saw this back with Afghanistan of August of last year. And I noticed it when I was in Parris Island, welcoming a new family member into the Marine Corps in September. But only a month prior to that, Joe Biden had botched a withdrawal from Afghanistan. We lost 13 Marines. Countless more were maimed and injured that day. But it told the world that we're going to be weak, and it emboldened Putin. So a lot of us have yellow and blue flags and pins, and we're very concerned about Ukraine. But that wouldn't have happened had Joe Biden been strong last year and up till now. China wouldn't be rattling its sword as they are now towards Taiwan. North Korea wouldn't be spinning up their centrifuges and testing, or Iran wouldn't be spinning up their centrifuges and creating their own fissile nuclear material had Joe Biden been strong like Trump was. So this is very scary to be weak on the international stage, and that's what people are worried about when I'm talking to them in all 100 counties in North Carolina.
Congressman Budd, soon to be senator, but I was with your soon to be seatmate, Tom Tillis, who's a friend, and we were at Save Our Allies event in the showing of a documentary on the awful collapse of Afghanistan. And Senator Tillis and his team and a bunch of great people like Michael Waltz on the House side and Tom Cotton, they all got together to get as many of our American citizens, green card holders, and SIVs out of Afghanistan as possible as Joe Biden. And Senator Tillis had tears in his eyes talking about these stories. I'm sure you hear. I talked to him afterwards. I said, "You got into this because of the North Carolina Army community, right?" And he said, "Yes." Have you heard the same thing from these men and women who have sacrificed so much of their blood and lives in Iraq and Afghanistan to see Joe Biden just throw it away?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we were working on those same cases in our congressional district. We were working in league with our two senators, including Senator Tillis, and it breaks your heart to see people who have given it all. I mean, you could tell. Look, when this border crisis tells you a lot, and I'm comparing this to Afghanistan. You saw people hanging on the wheel wells of jetliners departing Afghanistan, trying to get to America, that were willing to sacrifice their life just trying to get out of there and here. You see people giving up everything to come here, legally and illegally. So people vote with their feet. And even, Hugh, with all of our problems, this is where people want to come. And that tells you how we compare with the rest of the world. But this is a blessed country. This is a great country. It's the greatest country in history. But if we keep doing what we're doing now, we'll cease to become that.
Congressman, the climate cult is driving me crazy, and I'll talk about that, but I want to test a theory. I think inflation, crime, and education are the big three. Border goes into crime. But I think that the public schools collapsed during COVID, and now the wokeness of education hierarchies is driving moms and dads nuts. They just want the schools to teach their kids to be ready to learn and able to get a job after high school or go to college if they are so inclined. And the school says, I think almost every incumbent in every school district is going to get thrown out this year. What do you hear from North Carolina voters as you campaign to win this Senate election about what happened to the public schools in America in the last 4 years?
Yeah, that's what happened during COVID, the dark underbelly of COVID. People, you got kids sent home and parents started watching over these kids' shoulders what was on that computer screen. And they said, what the heck are you teaching my kids? And so, I mean, I'm going around the state. They're saying, hey, great, glad you're running for U.S. Senate. By the way, where are the school board folks? And they want to meet the school board candidates because those are the heroes all across North Carolina. There's going to be a lot thrown out, even in what we would consider the blue or the liberal districts. They're going to be upended by at least a moderate, maybe a conservative, we hope, that says, let's get rid of this social agenda that wants to corrupt the young minds, and let's start teaching them real things that actually make a difference in for the positive. Let's start teaching them math. Let's start teaching them English. Let's reading, writing, arithmetic, and stop crowding it out with this radical, progressive social agenda.
Congressman Budd, you'll have a little overlap with Myra Flores, your new member who won on Tuesday night. I don't know if she's been sworn in yet. That district is 86% Latino. It voted for Joe Biden by 4 points. It voted for Barack Obama by double digits. It is a Latino liberal district. It hasn't changed yet. She has to fight a new race in a new district. But it's 86% Latino. What do you hear from your Latino voters? Because Marco Rubio says they're just fleeing the Democratic Party into the Republican Party.
Well, I'd say welcome aboard. And we are having a massive Hispanic outreach for the Senate campaign. We agree on issues of faith. We agree on issues of family, on hard work. And I'm saying, let's link arms together and let's make this country greater. And so I am glad that we align on values, and they realize their party, they haven't changed, but their party has long since left them. And that's what a lot of folks are realizing. If it's women, if it's Hispanic, if it's African American, they're realizing, hey, their party left them. Their party has failed them. So let's get together. I think that the big tent party is the Republican Party. We can have our family fights in the Republican Party, but at least we want to make this country better.
Ted Budd, how do people help you? What's the website for the campaign?
Find me at tedbudd.com. 1D on Ted, 2 on Bud, tedbudd.com.
That's pretty doggone easy. I get some pretty hard campaign twisters in here, but Ted Budd, 1D on Ted and 2Ds on Bud.com. You need volunteers. I'm sure you need contributions. I don't know who the Democrats have nominated because this is kind of a hopeless cause. You're kind of very North Carolina. Are you a Duke or a UNC guy?
I am a Wake Forest guy. I'm North Carolinian because of Wake Forest even before I was born. That's what brought our family here back in the late 50s and early 60s.
So you're a demon deacon. You're like my toad of the Hugh Hewitt Show, Tarzana Joe, is a demon deacon. Well, thank you, Congressman, soon to be Senator Budd. Keep coming back as we get closer to Election Day, and good luck in this effort.
God bless. Thanks.
You too.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion before I voted against it.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. That's in the new Hall of Fame of Democratic candidates, presidents, face plants. I'm joined by former United States Senator Jim Talent from the Bipartisan Policy Center. Senator Talent, what's your reaction to President Biden yelling at me?
I think you'd make a good political consultant putting these things together. Well, it's like when he looked in the camera last year and told people he was losing patience with them. You ought to put that one in there too.
I got to go find that.
Yeah, you don't say that to voters. Remember, it was with the vaccine. He's losing patience with people. You don't look in the camera and yell at voters or tell them that you're losing patience with them. We're not in the red zone yet of this campaign. That's going to happen after Labor Day. And it's a very target-rich environment for the Republicans. Let's put it that way.
I have to say, if President Trump endorses Eric Schmidt, we will win the Missouri Senate seat. And if he endorses Eric Greitens, we will lose it. Do you have any, you're a former senator from Missouri, do you have any insight to that race?
From what I'm told, and this is fairly old intel, is that he's going to stay out of it. And if we nominate anybody but Eric Greitens, we're going to win easily. If we nominate Greitens, we're going to have a big problem because the campaign's going to be about what happened in his basement and his nonprofit and probably other things that we don't know about yet. And I just see no reason to run that risk. I don't think Missouri primary voters will. Eric Schmidt would be great. Vicky Hartzer would be great. We've got a number of other candidates, and any of them could hold that seat. You know, I don't want to lose the seat. I mean, there's a lot at stake nationally, and I don't think Missouri primary voters are going to do that.
Is that open to Democrats to vote in, though?
Yes.
So they can cross over and vote for Greitens and hope.
I don't. You know, I know they're trying that in Wyoming. That's usually not very successful. Now, I do expect to see some of these shenanigans where they try and get people. They run ads, like false flag ads, trying to get people to vote for candidates who can't win. I expect to see some of that. But, you know, we've been down that road before, and I think that tactic will get exposed.
You know, in Colorado, Democrats are trying to nominate a far-right Republican by the name of Ron Hanks. And Joe O'Dea, who's running, it could win, could beat Bennett in an upset. But this is the year in which those happen. So the Democrats are trying to not. They did it to Todd Aiken. They've done it before. They've crossed over. So Missouri matters a lot. And Eric Schmidt's just an easy win. Sometimes you take the layup, don't you?
Yes. I mean, I think people are going to do that. But I think there's a whole lot of undecideds. Our primary is not till early August. You'll start seeing the numbers shift as people make up their mind third week of July. And, you know, I'm not going to worry too much until then. I think we should do fine.
Now, Senator, let me look at the broader environment. I have been saying the cake is baked for the fall. The only thing that's changing is the price is going up on that cake because inflation is so out of control. Does anybody believe any of this Jennifer Granholm nonsense, John Kerry nonsense, Joe Biden nonsense about the price of gas is Putin's fault?
No. And I don't think they care. Look, I am the 37 years I've been involved in elective politics in one capacity or another. I have never seen an environment that is as bad for a party as this is for the Democrats. And most of it is self-inflicted. Let's just be fair. And on top of that, they have a leader. And I've said this on the show before you. They've never had a leader before who couldn't communicate.
Oh, that's interesting.
Obama,
You did say that.
None of them who are there have had a leader like that. They had Obama and they had Clinton, who were both really good communicators. And now they have somebody in the opposite end of the spectrum. So even when they get a message that could work, they can't carry it.
Yeah, he's like a running back who fumbles every time.
And every time he does it, you come out with a new set of clips, and we're going to see those clips this fall, among other things. I think we're just going to see a lot of ads about what's happened with gas prices, what's happened with crime, what's happening on the border, what's happened with school closing. And all these things have intruded into people's day-to-day lives and have hurt them. This is
and
why
they banked on 1-6 committee, which isn't a committee, and they banked on Roe being overturned by Dobbs. And I actually think Americans are upset by the extremists parading around and inviting assassination attempts. I really think both of those issues have blown back on Democrats. 30 seconds, Jim Talent.
Yeah, but you have to talk about something. Remember, when you're a politician, you got to talk about something. If you can't talk about inflation and gas prices and crime and the border, you talk about the J6 committee.
Good point. As usual, Jim Talent, follow him on Twitter. When you've been doing it as long as he has, as long as I have, you get an ear for this stuff. And that Joe Biden quote, more of it next hour on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. After the horror in Uvalde and the mass shooting in Buffalo, Leader Mitch McConnell of the Senate Republicans tasked my guest, Senator John Cornyn, to lead the efforts to negotiate on behalf of Senate Republicans on a package of changes to federal law that could help prevent future such terrible massacres. He joins me now. Good morning, Senator. Welcome. It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Hugh. Good to be with you.
Where are the negotiations at this morning?
Well, we are narrowing the issues, and I would say we have a final meeting before we break for this week, and we need to make some final decisions on the open items so we can get text written and distributed to our colleagues. Senator Schumer has said he would like to have this bill on the floor next week. The two issues are really what the Democrats like to call the boyfriend loophole, which would cover non-traditional relationships, perhaps long-standing, intimate or romantic relationships that would be subject to the bar of being able to purchase a firearm if you're convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor. The second has to do with the distribution of the funds for crisis intervention. Of course, the whole red flag issue has gotten a lot of attention, but there's a lot of things being done in a number of other states: mental health courts, veterans courts, outpatient assisted treatment for people with mental health challenges to try to help them manage those. There are a lot of things being done across the country that I would like to see share in the money that we are going to be appropriating.
Now, Senator Cornyn, I'm very confident, you're having been a former state Supreme Court justice of the Texas Supreme Court, that you will know that whatever you pass has to pass Second Amendment scrutiny. I know you know that. So do your colleagues across the aisle understand that Heller applies and its progeny?
Well, they don't like it, and they would, if we let them, they would try to erode the rights of law-abiding citizens. But none of these mass shootings, none of these gangbangers, none of this criminal activity involves law-abiding citizens. I mean, I own a number of firearms, and I'm not a threat to public safety, and the vast majority of firearms owners are not. And so there's no reason to try to erode the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. What we need to focus on are people that are undergoing mental health crises and people who have been adjudicated as mentally ill, as well as people who are criminals, which are currently barred by law from buying a firearm if it is in the background check system.
Now, Senator, the objection I receive from most gun enthusiasts is that the laws that the government passes never seem to get the killer in Charleston at Mother Emanuel. They never get the killers at Columbine, the killers at Parkland, the killer at Uvalde, the killer in Las Vegas. The background checks miss them. Does the new legislation open up juvenile records so that they can be inspected for the obvious signs in Parkland? I mean, that that killer had many run-ins with the law, and the killer in Uvalde had many run-ins with school authorities. I mean, he was throwing dead cats on lawns and stuff. Does this law find a way to reach into their backgrounds and prevent them from buying a semi-automatic weapon?
That certainly is our goal, Hugh. You know, the wish list of the folks who would like to erode the Second Amendment is very long, and you'll notice that none of that is being considered. What we are trying to do is we're trying to narrowly address the situation at hand, like we did following the Sutherland Springs shooting, where the Air Force had failed to upload felony and domestic violence convictions for the shooter there, who then killed a lot of innocent people at a little Baptist church outside of San Antonio. I work with Chris Murphy from Connecticut, a blue state senator, who he would like to do something much more aggressive. But what we did is we fixed that gap in the background check system by mandating that government agencies do so, incentivizing the states to populate the background check system. And we've seen 11.5 million new records uploaded into the system. But the system can't work if the information is not there.
So, Senator, the other objection is due process is at risk for would-be gun purchasers if a delay is allowed to be triggered by people who are simply angry with you or unhappy, even if you're a responsible gun owner or a responsible adult or anything like that. Do you think you have guardrails against the abuse of any new legislation by people who are just angry or just resent your politics, for example? Can it be turned around to hurt people who have legitimate reason to buy weapons?
Well, as you know, due process of law is a fundamental constitutional right, and we're not going to do anything to erode that either. One of the things I think people should understand is we're not going to pass a national red flag law. They do exist in some form in 19 states, and one of the things we are going to condition the access to the federal grant funding through the Department of Justice is going to be on the most rigorous due process standard that exists in the law today. They won't be able to get access to it unless they have that standard in place. But this is a subject I know of a lot of concern because people wonder, whether an aggrieved neighbor or ex-girlfriend or somebody could trigger this. One idea would be that it could only be triggered by law enforcement. We're still grappling with the contours of that. But again, these are state laws that the federal government does not have any control over, but we want to make sure that due process is protected to the maximum allowed.
Senator, I've been saying on the show a lot that the precedent for your approach is in the effort by the Mothers Against Drunk Driving to get the federal Congress to condition receipt of gas tax income to the states on their raising the drinking age to 21. That worked. It was constitutional under the spending clause. And it sounds to me like you're doing the same thing, but it's a much more complicated matter, correct? This is just harder.
Yeah, when Sutherland Springs occurred, that was kind of a single point of failure, and Uvalde involves multiple points of failure, as you noted. And what we are also doing is we are going to make probably the largest major investment in community-based mental health care ever in America. As part of this bill, we're also going to make sure that schools can be hardened, no more soft targets. We're going to have officers there on campus, along with the infrastructure necessary to protect our children. No parent should have to send their child to school fearful for their safety, and no child should have to go to school being afraid. And we intend to do everything we can to ensure their safety and to allay their fears.
Now, Senator, there are 131,000 K through 12 schools in America, public and private. That includes some religious schools. Will assistance to pay for police on campus exclusively go to government schools, or will private schools be eligible as well?
Well, I believe that all schools should be eligible. There's a set of best practices that have been adopted in part by the Secret Service and investigations that they've done. And of course, again, we can't force these local school districts to do things. I guess the states can do that within their jurisdiction, but we can certainly let everybody know what the best practices are. And if we can secure our airports, Hugh, we can certainly secure our schools.
I agree with this, Senator. I am afraid, though, that we will hear, as we always do, the incorrect interpretation of the Establishment Clause as barring federal grants to religiously based schools, Jewish day schools, Catholic parochial schools, you name it. They'll say you can't give support for police on campus to the local police department because that's an Establishment Clause breach. It's not, but have you heard that in the conversations with your colleagues?
No, that really hadn't come up in our current conversations, but you're right. That's traditionally been the position of the left, that they want to discriminate against religious schools. I think the current Supreme Court is helping us out a little bit by clarifying, I think in the Montana case fairly recently, that not all assistance to parochial schools is unconstitutional. In every conversation I've had with the Supreme Court nominee since I've been in the Senate, I've complained to them about the mess, which is the Establishment Clause jurisprudence, and begged them to clarify that so that really the policy of the federal government was neutrality, not discrimination.
Exactly. Let me close by asking you about the negotiations, Senator Cornyn. You've been there a long time. You're very effective. When people get down to business, they turn to you because you're a good lawyer as well as a good senator. How has this set of negotiations been different or better or worse than other complex negotiations?
Well, you can figure out when people actually want to get a result and when they are basically posturing and playing to the peanut gallery. Here, I would say to his credit, Chris Murphy is working in good faith. Kirsten Sinema has been this group of four along with Tom Tillis from North Carolina. Of course, we need to persuade a lot of other senators to join us once we sort of reach agreement among ourselves. And as you know, last Sunday we released a set of principles that enjoy the support of 20 senators, 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats. The challenge, of course, as you know, is to translate those principles into text. And of course, people like to come back and try to renegotiate things all the time. And I think we're about run out of our rope here, and we got to make some final decisions today if we're going to be able to get this on the floor next week.
ABC, always be closing. I know you are a closer, Senator Cornyn. Good luck in getting this done. I like the framework. I think I'm with Leader McConnell on this. But the constitutionality is in the details, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Senator John Cornyn, good luck in that effort. I appreciate your coming on and joining us. Update us. Next week we can review, or the week thereafter, what you come up with. Have a good weekend and a good productive day working with your Democratic colleagues.
Thanks, Hugh.
Welcome back, America. I am Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening. Ashley Hale is a graduate of the Prison Fellowship Academy, about which you can learn more at hughhewitt.com if you hit on the banner, Breaking the Cycle of Crime. Good morning, Ashley. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Ashley, it's difficult to ask people who've been in prison why they were there, and I don't want details you don't want to share, but how did Prison Fellowship Academy change the trajectory of your life?
Well, Hugh, I had been caught in addiction for over 20 years, and I really needed to go to prison to just change everything that I had known for so long and the life that I had been living. And so while I was there, I signed up and applied to get into the prison fellowship program. And that is honestly what changed my life, where I found God again, and they taught me how to live with values and how to actually apply that to my life. Everything was based on biblical principle, and I still live it out today.
Are you still in recovery, Ashley?
I am. I have 6 years clean.
That's terrific. Congratulations on that. When you are in a Prison Fellowship Academy program, you're not there alone. There are people who come in from outside of the prison walls to help, but you also have a fellowship of other women who are incarcerated, correct?
That is true. So we really build a community. We all live in the same dorm, and that doesn't mean we always get along. And so with that, we learn all the things that you need to survive out in life, in the real world. And we work through any kind of conflict and setting healthy boundaries. It was just such a great program. Community is so important, and I never realized that. And so it was important, too, once I got out, to continue to have good community in my life.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough to tell someone who's an addict as they leave prison, you should join a 12-step program. I've seen a lot of courtrooms where judges defer sentences if people get a card and they get it punched at meetings. That doesn't really work unless you've got a theoretical structure on which to operate. Am I right about that, Ashley?
You're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, I don't even go to meetings. I found support in other ways. When I got out, went to several different churches until I found a church family that I felt like I belonged in, and that became my support. I also signed up for a program called Stand in the Gap, where spiritual mentors walk beside you and meet with you every single week and pray with you and just guide you on making good decisions, whereas I had never done that on my own before.
How did you find out about the Prison Fellowship Academy once you were incarcerated, Ashley?
We were the first women's prison fellowship academy in Oklahoma. And so we really had never heard of such a thing. And they just put flyers up, and it was more out of curiosity and thinking, well, what else am I going to do with my time? And so what I didn't know is that it was just going to be a year of complete transformation, and how blessed I would be for signing up.
How charismatic or non-charismatic were the leaders of this? Because I think it's scalable. Chuck Colson never did anything that couldn't be scaled. He was a friend of mine. How replicable is your experience to other inmates across the country?
Oh, it's so amazing. I encourage anybody that wants to change their life to sign up, because it's all about the people that bring it in. It's the leader of the academy, but then it's all the volunteers, and they're just great examples of how to live godly lives. I literally looked at these people every single week that were coming into the prisons and just loving us and teaching us and non-judgmental, and I was like, I want to be like them. How can I live a life with just complete joy?
Non-judgmental is a key phrase there, Ashley. What do you mean by that?
They didn't care why we were incarcerated, and all they cared about is loving us, getting rid of our shame, getting rid of our guilt. We had already been punished for whatever crime. That wasn't why they were there. So they just wanted to show us that God loved us, and to teach us how to get our value from Him instead of what other people thought, because that was my problem. I always got my value from what other people thought, and it didn't lead me to a good place.
Ashley Hale, I appreciate your speaking on behalf of Prison Fellowship Academy, especially to other families who might have someone incarcerated, and give them a direction to join the program. And congratulations on your continuing recovery. Are you working?
I am. I just recently finished up an internship with Prison Fellowship. I was so honored to be a part of that. And so I continue to volunteer through them. And I am a manager at a grocery store. Very proud of that.
I am very proud of that, too. And I think, by the way, employers look for things like PFA on your resume. Ashley, thank you so much. Have a great, blessed Thursday. Thank you, America, for listening. I want to thank Adam and Generalissimo and Jacob. I want to thank Chuck Box for writing Joe Pickett so that I have something to watch at night. You should, too. Joe Pickett on Paramount Plus. And I want to come back tomorrow. We'll have more of the presidents yelling at you, because when the president yells at you, I take notice. Our new ad is free and available. It's up at HughHewitt.com. Any candidate anywhere in the country can use it. I'll be back tomorrow. The John Cornyn audio and transcript will also be posted very, very soon. See you tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.